statistic says that the Indianapolis Colts are a more complete football team than the Tennessee Titans. But the Tennessee Titans, I deem them on the last show as team underrated in the NFL. They're kind of my adopted team just because I like a lot of their players and I like their coach, Mike Vrabel. Here's the thing about them. The last few years, they're the pull the rabbit out of the hat and make the playoffs team, right? Like
Yeah.
2017, this was with Mike Munchak and Marcus Mariota. They couldn't lose to the Niners this was Jimmy Garoppolo's 5-0 start, and they lost to them, and they still managed to make the playoffs somehow.
Mhm.
And then I think they missed it in 2018, and then they made it in 2019, or am I mixing it up? But they made it one more year with Mariota, right? And they beat the Chiefs and lost to New England.
Yep.
That was 2018. And then last year, even most people didn't expect them to make the playoffs. I think they were 3-5, and the Ryan Tannehill insertion really made Derrick Henry emerge, and they started just running the football, playing a really good style, playing their style of football, which is run with Derrick Henry and play action and throw the football down the field with that. And that allowed them to make the playoffs. So I still think they have a run within them. I think their defense is going to get a lot better. I know their pass rush isn't very good, but I've talked about Jeffrey Simmons, another big guy. Jeffrey Simmons is a superstar. I think that their linebackers, Jayon Brown and Rashaan Evans, are good. I think Desmond King has been a really, really welcoming addition to their secondary. So I think their defense will improve. Yeah. And I just like Ryan Tannehill. I like that they can run the ball and they have an identity with Derrick Henry. And I do think that when push comes to shove, that team is going to make a run and get themselves into a very favorable position for the playoffs.
So, counter you and my thought. You said You said hard over statistics. I'm going statistics over hard on this one. I think the Colts are going to come out. So a couple reasons for that. Their defense, I'd say top 3. You could argue at worst case top 5. Their defense has been amazing. Buckner, who they traded for, is still looking great. D-line's pretty good overall. Darius Leonard's a really good linebacker. In the secondary, Xavier Rhodes, he's come back to life after kind of being an outcast a little bit for the Vikings those last couple of years. And the main reason, Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator, has done a fantastic job of bringing them from a bottom of the NFL defense to a top defense. If you remember, he was actually the linebackers coach in Dallas. Remember when they had so they still have him, but Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch, when those two, it was 2018. It was Van Der Esch's rookie year, and he was looking like a star. He was playing great.
I don't think he was the linebackers coach at that time.
It was either 16 or 17, but
I think he was the linebackers coach. He might have helped Sean Lee emerge, but I think he was already in Indianapolis, changing life there, because Josh McDaniels hired him, I think, 2018, right?
Yeah.
So maybe. I don't know. You could be right.
I think it was 2018-2019 season, but he was there 2017-2018 with those linebackers. So he helped develop them, and Jalen Smith played his best ball with Eberflus, and he's not looking that great now. I mean, there's not much talent around him, but that's beside the fact. So I think he will be a head coach within the next year or two. That's my main reason. Their offense is good enough to where they can kind of play keep away and just grind out. They have a really good O-line. Phillip has been better than Brissett. He's not great. But I think they're going to do better than the Titans for sure and win the division. And they beat them down Thursday night. And I think that kind of exposed the Titans as, can they pass to get back into a game? Because you can't run when you're behind the whole time, especially by 2 scores. And weren't doing that efficiently. And the Colts ran all over them too.
So the Titans, at least last time they played, didn't have Adam Humphries, right? So I think with Adam Humphries, I think you'll get a better answer to your question. And I think the Titans have proven that Ryan Tannehill has brought him back a lot, actually, throwing the ball. And so I don't have any questions about that. I don't have that question about them. What I will say about the Colts is that, do you trust Phillip Rivers ultimately to make the correct decisions and win them games, right? Like, Phillip Rivers is a borderline Hall of Fame quarterback, so it sounds sacrilegious to be saying something like this.
Yeah.
But I just feel like whenever I watch Phillip Rivers and I think, man, Phillip Rivers is as good as anybody. He makes these mistakes or makes very costly, catastrophic mistakes that just lose games and screw up seasons and stuff that really make me question if you can really win long-term or really win it all with Phillip Rivers. I don't know. I think this is his best shot because they protect him as well as anybody gets protected in the NFL because that offensive line is really good. But right now, for me, it's a Phillip Rivers versus Ryan Tannehill thing, and I think Ryan Tannehill would pull it out because I think Ryan Tannehill is firmly entrenched as a top 10 quarterback. I'm not even sure Phillip Rivers is top 20.
No, that's definitely good. Phillip, especially last year, the amount of turnovers he had, just mainly interceptions, was alarming. Like you saw, his throwing motion is just, everyone talks about it. It is just uncanny how he throws the football.
Right. Every Chargers game last year was the same, right? Chargers would go down. Phillip Rivers would have a couple turnovers. Defense would start playing well. Phillip Rivers would bring them back. Chargers have the ball with a minute 30 left and no timeouts. Phillip is driving. Phillip makes a big throw to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. You think the Chargers are going to pull it out. Phillip throws a pick. Game over. Every game was the same way last year.
I do have a couple more points. One, Frank Reich I think he's an amazing play caller, and I think he might have been, with the way the Eagles have play calling and team has looked, he might have been one of the main engines behind that force of an offense they had when they won the Super Bowl. He's a fantastic play caller.
I agree.
They went for it on fourth down 4 or 5 times, and they got it all but once. That is, you saw the Eagles always doing that in 2017. They would go for it on fourth a lot. And I also want to mention kickers. Rodrigo Blankenship for the Colts hasn't been bad. He has those sports goggles, and he just looks like the least like an NFL player on that team. But Gostkowski for the Titans has been bad, horrid. He's missed a lot of kicks. He almost lost them the game against the Broncos. He missed 4 kicks week 1.
Yeah, he's definitely a problem.
He is a liability.
Yeah. He is definitely a problem. So Gostkowski, without a doubt, that is 100% a problem with Tennessee. I'm hoping they get a new kicker. He figures it out, whatever's going on upstairs for him. But he's got major yips. Like, you can't even trust him to kick extra points right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I don't know. I just trust that Mike Vrabel is going to make the right decision, whether it's trusting Gostkowski or maybe getting a new kicker. I think they're going to be well coached. Mike Vrabel manages the game so well. His in-game management is kind of John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, like Bill Belichick, maybe just the tier under Bill Belichick, which is as elite as it gets to win in the NFL. So I'm putting my faith in Team Underrated. I think they'll pull it out. Their team, they got a little magic about them. They've done it before, and I just think Ryan Tannehill pulls it out for them.
To point to what Vrabel did, do you remember the thing he did with his kicker? Or it wasn't kicker, it was punter, where they kept taking different types of penalties, and doing this would keep running the clock off. So they did that against the Patriots in the wild card, and they ran a bunch of time off the clock. And Vrabel saw that.
The significance was Belichick did it to somebody else. And to see Vrabel do that. But speaking of punters, that's actually a really good point. The best punter in the NFL plays in Tennessee.
He does. Brett
Kern is as good a punter as there is in the NFL. He's been hurt. Getting him back will be very good for Tennessee's defense because they can play field position much better. Brett Kern is a stud punter. Nobody mentions punters, but they're people too. And Tennessee has a very good one.
Yep. So